Hello friends, we'll be discussing the concept of production decision of a business firm here. Now, what exactly leads a business firm to take a production decision, on what factors a decision related to production is taken, is something that we'll be understanding right now. Let's understand certain pointers related to it first. An important question is in which stage a rational producer will seek to produce. Now, this is one of the most important questions. Which stage, or rather which stage of the business should the producer start production of things? After market research, before market research, or rather understanding the target audience and then understanding the research and development part of it, then understanding what are the technological advancement that the surrounding or rather the rivals have done, and after doing all such research whether you should start with a production business or not is something that we are understanding right now. The objective of a rational producer is to minimize cost and maximize profit. Any business that you take into consideration, this is the most rational concept any business would have. Minimization of cost and maximization of profit. This is how the business firm works. You take your home, or rather the running cost of your home. The lower the cost that you incur in running your home, the maximum profit of the salary that you can enjoy for your own self service, or rather for your own needs and requirements. Now, a rational producer will not operate in stage 3 as marginal product of variable factor is negative. The stage 3 that we discussed, whereby the marginal product or rather the marginal productivity of any product goes in the negative part. None of the producer will go ahead and produce goods in that specific stage. If he has reached that stage, he will stop production of products here. Hence, in that stage, if he continues with the production, he is going to incur into losses because the marginal productivity of that product or rather that item has gone down completely. It's beyond negative now. As the marginal product of the variable unit becomes negative, a business firm can always increase its output by reducing the variable factor. Now, the marginal product of this variable unit becomes negative. It can always increase the output by reducing the variable factor. Now, why has that marginal productivity gone into negative? Because you're consuming more of variable factors. Now that your fixed factors are already exhausted, if you put in more of variable factors to the use, of course the marginal productivity is going to go down. If you reduce that part, hence that is the point whereby the marginal productivity will stay above zero, or at least into the positive trend, if not negative then. Now, the next point refers to a rational firm will not operate even in stage 1. Now, a rational firm will not completely operate in stage 1 also. We are talking about stage 3, we are talking about stage 1 now. It is so because the firm is not making best use of its fixed factor. Why? Now, the total productivity, if you see, it started declining, or rather the marginal productivity, if it starts declining in stage 1 itself, that means you need to understand that the fixed factors are not being used to its optimum utilization, whereby you could have achieved maximum utility out of stage 1 for those marginal productivity using the fixed factors. If that is not happening, a rational producer will not operate, or rather will not function properly even in the start of stage 1, whereby the marginal productivity is starting to decline from stage 1 itself. If it is declining from stage 2, then it is a different concept, then he will operate in stage 1. But if it is declining from stage 1 itself, you are nowhere going to earn profits here. Thus, the increase in variable factor increases the average return to the variable factor, and the total output is also increasing. So at that point of time, if your fixed factors are utilized completely to the maximum output, that's when you start utilizing more of variable factors in that stage. If at all your fixed factors are not completely utilized and then too you're using more of variable factors, your output, or rather the utilization of the output, will keep on declining here. That's just something that you need to understand in a better way. Now, thus a competitive firm has an incentive to expand all through stage 1. Thus, when you talk about a competitive firm, or rather you talk about any competitive firm, be it a startup, be it an established firm here, who has competition with the similar kind of market, or rather with similar kind of product, it has all the chances to grow, or rather to establish in stage 1. But if it is not done at that moment, it is not going to happen ever. A rational firm will always operate in stage 2. Now, if the stage 1 is cleared by a rational firm, then there are huge chances, or there are high chances, that the same firm will operate flawlessly in stage 2. Why? Is because if the natural term, or rather the natural scenario whereby the marginal productivity keeps on declining in stage 1, if that is avoided and it continues in stage 2, yes, you can absolutely function properly in stage 2 here. Both the marginal product and average product of the variable factor are diminishing, but total product still increases. Why? Is because in total product, the reason that we have understood that the increasing rate starts from stage 1, then in stage 2 it increases but at a declining rate, or rather at a slower rate. The word is slower rate basically. The total output reaches its maximum when the marginal productivity becomes zero. So the moment marginal productivity comes to an halt, or rather it gets zero, that's when you need to understand that the total productivity has achieved its market, or rather the peakest segment that you can ever touch. Hence, at that point of time, the production should be stopped completely, because more the one, or rather the more you produce after that stage, it is going to just add up to the cost, and it is never going to reap you any profits there. It is this stage, the operation, that is suitable for the rational producer. So this is the stage whereby the operations, or rather should be brought to an hold by a rational producer here. Now the next part refers to increasing returns to factors. This is one thing that we have to discuss. Increasing returns to factors refers to a situation in which output increases by larger proportion when more and more units of variable factors are combined with fixed factors of production. Now, if for example you have variable, you have constant factors, and you have output here. Now, if the combination of this thing is leading to an increase in the output with different combinations, so the more and more, if you're using 1 unit of both these combination, it is increasing the output. If you're using 2 units, it is increasing the output more further. If you are using 3 units, it is tripling up the output here. Now, with all these things, you understand that the more and more you're using the combination of variable and constant factors of input, output is increasing in a larger proportion as compared to this. So if you're using one, it is going at a nominal rate. If you're using one or more of that combination, it is substantially increasing the output here. Then in that case, yes, you can absolutely go ahead and produce more of such goods. In such a situation, marginal product of the variable factor must be increasing. So in such situations whereby with smaller combinations, or rather one more unit of those combinations is increasing your output to a substantial level or to a different level altogether, in such cases you can absolutely go ahead and figure out how exactly it is going to increase. And here the marginal productivity will never be zero, it will keep on increasing. In table 4.2, which we'll see in the next part, when firm increased the number of variable units, the corresponding increase in the output is more proportional to the increase in output. So now, for example, if you're talking about the output factor here, let us see that with one output you are getting, or rather one input, you are getting 3 as an output. Isn't it a good ratio? With one input, if you are getting 0.5, out of these two ratios, which one do you think is preferable for a business? Is it the first one or is it the second one? Of course, the first one, because here you're getting 1 is to 3 as a ratio. For every one input, or rather combination of one input here, you're getting 3 as an output. But in the second option, you're getting one input, you're getting half as an output. The option that will be selected by every rational businessman will be the first one. Not only this, the marginal productivity of a variable factor is also increasing till the point firm employed 3 units of variable factor with fixed factors. So, whereby you understand that with variable constants, if you are using fixed constants in such a way that the output is leading, or rather it is increasing at an exorbitant value or exorbitant proportion, that's when you can understand, okay, yes, my business is going to make a lot of profit here, or rather it is absolutely making a lot of profit here. Let's take for an example these new startup companies that we have Byju's, who has already taken over majority of the concept here, or rather majority of the market, that it has left with other things, or rather it has taken only one factor. Maybe it has taken only school section, but he has tapped on the market in such a way that it has taken majority of the edtech startup competition. And now for its rivals, like some other small companies, maybe some different companies that we have, these companies will have to strive hard to go further into this. Now that we've understood that with every output ratio that we are discussing here, that means every variable and constant factor if they are taken as one as a combination, and using this combination, if you're adding, or rather the output that you're getting is in the ratio of 1:3, you understand that your company is doing really good and this production should further go ahead with it. Now this is what we have discussed about when it comes to increasing standards here. Now let us understand few more details on it. Now this is the stage, or rather this is the return to the factors law that we are talking about. A business firm experiences increasing returns when per unit cost continually goes on diminishing. That means whatever I am earning, if at all my usage, or rather if you see that the cost that I'm incurring, if it is low, then my profits are higher. For example, let us take that this is the cost, this is the profit. Now if earlier you had an income of 10 rupees, and out of this 10 rupees income you derive like 7 rupees is the cost, 3 rupees is the profit. Now here the profit is still there, you cannot say there is no profit, there is still a limited profit here, but how to enhance this profit is something that we need to understand. Now here the concept of minimizing cost and that will lead to maximization of profit comes into the picture. Now imagine if the cost is 7 rupees in making certain things, is there any possibility that this cost can be reduced? Because if you increase this cost, then it might be that 8 rupees is the cost that happens and the profit goes down to 2. 9 rupees, profit goes down to 1. 10 rupees, profit goes down to 0. This is the ratio that it will follow. That with the same ratio, if we figure out how exactly we can reduce the cost. So if this 7 rupees goes down to 6 rupees, eventually my profit will be 4 rupees. If it goes down to 5 rupees, my profit will be 5 rupees. Now here, the moment the cost is minimized, profit is increased here. Hence, the stages of law of return factors. Let's understand units of fixed factor, that is capital. Something that is fixed, that is capital, has been mentioned here. It is a fixed factor. Labor, which is a variable factor. Now, if you see here, capital is fixed. That means 5 units of capital is going to be used by default. Variable, that is labor. Supposingly in this, or rather in this criteria, we used only one labor. Total product is 4, marginal productivity is 4, and average productivity is 4. Now, with this variable, we increased it to, the total productivity went to 12, marginal productivity to 8, and average to 8. Here there is an increasing return to the factor. That means the moment you increased your variable factor, here there is increase in the return to it. Now let's say 3, then it goes to 24, 12, and 8. Again there is an increasing factor. But now if you put 4 labor, total productivity is 32, marginal productivity has gone down from 12 to 8. That means there is a diminishing return here. As you can see, this all refers to diminishing, and this is stage 3. So basically this is stage 1, this is stage 2, and this is stage 3. If you reach stage 3, that means you have to shut down your business completely. Why? Is because you can see your average productivity is getting 0, or rather your marginal productivity is already going into negative. This is not the situation whereby you should run your company, because the more of your fixed, or rather if you can see, this is fixed here completely, the more of variable factor goes above fixed capital, or rather fixed units, that means you're using more of variable units, and that is going to cause negativity in terms of the marginal productivity, in terms of the average productivity, and eventually it will affect the total productivity, which will keep on declining. So that's stage 3 basically. Now let's go on to the next part of this, diminishing returns to factors. We understood increasing returns to factors. Now we'll be understanding diminishing returns, and the next part that we'll be understanding is the negative returns. Now, it occurs when the rise of marginal product from successive unit of a variable starts declining but remains positive. Now, when do we call it is diminishing in returns, or rather there are diminishing returns? When by every use of variable product that you're using, so for example, if this is fixed, this is variable, this is marginal productivity. Now, if for fixed it is 5, variable it is 4, here total productivity is 8. With 5 fixed, variable is 5, here it is going to 6. With 5, this is 6, this is going to 5. If you can see, the marginal productivity is going down. When this stage comes in, that means you have entered stage 2 here. It is not going beyond negative, or it is not going to 0 or negative, but it started moving towards 0 here. That's when there is diminishing return on factors. So In this table, the earlier table that we studied, we understood that the variable units from 4 to 6 increased there. That means variable units increased from 4 to 6 here. What exactly we are talking about? Now, from 4, this variable, it went to 6. Similarly, the marginal productivity from 8, it went to 0. Can you see the difference? The more of variable products that you use, the less of marginal productivity that you can expect. It will lead to 0. Now, the next stage, that is 7, it moved on to 7 variable products. It went on to negative completely in terms of marginal productivity here. So, this is what we were discussing. Now, the next part is negative returns. Again, the negative returns that we're talking about is the stage 3. It refers to the stage where increase in variable factors cause fall in total output. As firm increases its variable input, corresponding change in output becomes negative. So the moment the variable factors keep on increasing, total output, or rather total productivity, keeps on declining, and that's when you understand, okay, you're making a mistake, or rather this is the natural phenomenon whereby you understand that the total productivity is going down, and you need to understand how exactly you need to figure out things here. Hence, this is something that you need to keep in mind, or rather this is something that you need to understand how exactly you need to function in this specific format. So these are the basic properties that you need to understand when we are talking about variable law, or rather law of variable proportion. First, that is the increasing return stage. Second, that is the diminishing return stage. And third, there is a negative return stage. All these three stages are constantly related to the variable factors. The more of variable factors, the more you enter the stage 3, stage 2 from stage 1. Hence, make sure that whenever you have to explain this concept to someone else, you take these factions, or rather that is fixed factor, variable factor, the total productivity, marginal and average productivity into consideration, and then understand how the stage is supposed to be done, especially the table that we just discussed right now. So this is all that we have in this video for your explanation. Thank you.